What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It's another edition of the Oddsmakers, presented by SuperBook Sports. I'm Jonathan Von Tobel, joined by the Oddsmakers themselves, Jay Kornegay and John Murray, who are here after a couple of weeks of the holidays. How was it, guys? How was New Year's Eve? How was your weekend?
It was busy. A lot of festivities going on around here. Met up with a lot of great guests that we have, coming in here throughout the entire year, actually. They came in and celebrated the new year with us. So quite a few celebrations.
You guys big New Year's guys? Do you like to stay up, count down, do all that kind of stuff?
Sure.
John?
No, New Year's is the stupidest holiday of the year. It's so dumb.
This is a unified front then. I think New Year's is one of the most useless holidays.
And it's amateur hour too. Every moron's out there and they're behaving foolishly.
Right. Yes.
No, New Year's is the worst.
Well, out in the street they are, not in these parties.
Oh no,
the parties are more sophisticated.
That's
than
true.
that.
I'm referring to the Strip.
Yeah,
that is true. I'm referring to the Strip. You're right.
How many times have you been out on the Strip?
Twice.
How long you lived here?
I moved here in 2007.
7. You?
We're talking about total? Ever been to the Strip?
No, he's saying for New Year's.
For New Year's.
Oh,
yeah.
never been there.
Really?
It totally sucks.
How long you been here?
Since I was 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
that's crazy.
Yeah. I've never had any desire to experience.
You know what? I've done it 3 times. I just realized that there was a third one in there.
Now, Fremont Street's another thing, but yeah, the Strip, no, nothing at all. All right, from an action standpoint, Week 17 overall, positive, negative, just about in the middle, nothing notable in terms of the result in the National Football League.
It was kind of up and down.
Yeah.
We had a mixture of results here. Some days, over the past weekend, the holiday weekend, we had some fair days and break-even days. I don't think there's anything notable there.
No?
I think we had the biggest crowd we've had at the SuperBook since March Madness for that Niners-Raiders game.
For that
it was pandemonium in here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's a vocal fan base, San Francisco.
I was somewhere else in town, and
it was wild.
Yeah, there was a lot of people out for that game as well. I thought that was really weird how packed it was.
We were not ready for that at all. This was a bigger crowd than we had for Week 1 of the NFL.
You think?
Absolutely. Wow. It was nuts. Just during that game. In the morning, it was quiet. It wasn't like there weren't huge lines at 10 a.m., but for that game, San Francisco and the Raiders, the fans were jawing with one another, John. It was quite a scene in here. Yeah. It was fun.
I know some season ticket holders, and they said that the fan base that represented the 49ers on Sunday was the biggest of all season long. It was crazy. They said, you know what? And they didn't report any scuffles. we were concerned about that,
right.
But I guess both sides were well behaved, so good for them.
So obviously, one of the bigger topics of the weekend, the unfortunate incident on Monday Night Football. Bills safety Damar Hamlin suffers cardiac arrest on the field. The game is ultimately canceled, postponed. Our sympathies, I think we speak for everybody here on the Oddsmakers and for SuperBook Sports, go out to Damar's family and him, of course. And the positive news is that he is trending in the right direction, showing signs of improvement, and that is always a very good sign. From the sports betting perspective, I think it's important to talk about the ripple effects of what happened on Monday night, and from your perspective, guys, when it comes to house rules and how you handle what happens on Monday night when it comes to an event like that being canceled. So I'll give it to you, Jay or John. When that event happens and we know this game is not going to be played, the SuperBook house rules are what?
Well, over the years, we've been in the business for over 30 years. I speak for myself, and these rules have been formatted for, over 3 decades. So we've had some unfortunate situations that have taken place during the course of those, 3 decades. We've had a lot of weather-related issues, wildfires, hurricanes that have either canceled or postponed games. And so we haven't really experienced anything like this before. This was very scary. This was a young man's life, that was on the line here, and it really did hit us hard. It really did on both sides of the counter. It was very somber for all of us, and we were thinking first about his health and his recovery, and wanted him to recover as fast as and as soon as possible. It wasn't until really the next day that we were thinking, okay, what are we going to do with all this? But we already had the rules in place. Mm-hmm. The rules were there, and according to our house rules, which we always tell everybody, sportsbooks rules vary by book. And so you always have to check with your local book. For us, like many others, a football game must be played within 8 days for action. So we knew that if they weren't going to play it the very next night, that all the bets related to this game were going to be refunded.
That's side, that's total, that's player props, things of that nature for Monday Night Football being refunded. Now, there are ramifications when it comes to the SuperContest. We can go over that when we recap and go over what the leader's looking at here in the final week of it. But for now, house rules. And house rules are very important. As a bettor, got to keep track of it. As you said, Jay, there are different ones throughout. I had bets on this game that are being handled differently on different books and different apps than what SuperBook's doing. So for bettors out there, it's always very important. Make sure you know your house rules when it comes to anything when it comes to betting. So with that, the NFL does move on. We do have another week of action coming up, and it is the final week, so far as we know, of the regular season, week 18. So let's get into this, and we'll start at the top because it's an important game, and you guys were talking about the Raiders. The Raiders have another home game and gets bumped to Saturday. They're going to play host to the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs still have a lot. This is the cool part about this week is a lot of these teams do have a lot on the line. The Kansas City Chiefs still have not clinched a number one seed in the AFC, and that is still up in the air. They still have something to play for here. So I'll ask you guys where you're at with this game so far in terms of action, and if you have seen anything in terms of action on this up to this point.
You want to take that?
I can try to take that.
Well,
the Raiders-Chiefs game, I mean, it's just going to be, you're just going to have all these money line parlays and teasers with Kansas City.
Yeah, we opened 9.5. It dropped down to 7.5, and we did take some sharp action at 7.5, brought it back up to 9.5. But I looked at it right before we came out. I was kind of surprised. We had 92% of the tickets were for entertainment purposes only. I don't want anybody to get upset with me giving out breakdowns. 92% of the tickets on the Raiders. So it looks like the public is
buying into Jarrett Stidham?
A little bit. I think so. I think, that game was such a high-profile game. Many eyes were on it, and you got to admit, he did look pretty decent out there. And they have nothing to lose on Saturday. I think they're going to be very relaxed. I think the crowd will be fired up. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Chiefs fans as well. But he looked pretty good. This is a fifth-year man. Came out of the Patriots organization. Baylor, Auburn.
Offense,
yeah,
yep.
He looked pretty solid. So,
swimmer.
What?
Swimmer, right?
Swimmer.
Allegedly.
I thought it was a diver.
Or a diver. Which one was it? Which Jay alleged for those who don't know, Jay last week alleged that Jarrett Stidham was some sort of near Olympic swimmer, and we could find no evidence of that at all.
That's fake news.
He was doing that against San Francisco's defense. I think that's important to remember. I mean, San Francisco is way better defensively than Kansas City. If he can do that against the 49ers, it'll be interesting. I can see why people are betting the Raiders, John, because every Raider home game is like incredible, and it goes down to the last play, and there's all kinds of wacky scenarios at the end. Did the Raiders ever play a boring game?
Doesn't seem like it.
They always have these crazy endings, crazy football games, so I can see why you'd want to take 9.5 points.
It makes sense to me. I was going to ask, do you guys know if this was scheduled on Saturday the entire season, or did they just move that?
No.
They announced it on
week 18 is pretty much open. And then, the two games on Saturdays, right? And then the rest of the slate on Sunday. So they moved the pieces around to see fit for the narrative.
So all of the Kansas City fans had to change their flights and do all that stuff because, okay.
We should talk about that. We should talk about how the NFL totally screwed Seattle. By having them play, like the Lions-Packers game is the night game. So if Seattle beats the Rams, now the Lions know they're eliminated before the game even starts. Where the Lions game should be running at the same time as the Seattle game.
Exactly.
It's totally unfair to the Seahawks. It's great for Green Bay. I think that's ridiculous, John.
So
I'm outraged.
So you're outraged. So the thought is that by the time we get to Sunday night, the Lions would not have anything to play for, correct?
Well, they will. Correct. If Seattle beats the Rams, Detroit will be eliminated from, unless the NFL knows something we don't, which wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, I don't think the NFL knows anything we don't. Okay. I think the NFL did it right because I think if there is one guy who's psychotic enough to get a team that has nothing to play for to play a game at the end of the season in prime time, it's hardest. It would be Dan Campbell in the fight.
I think that the Lions are going to try.
Right.
Even if they're out, I don't think Dan Campbell and that team is going to stop trying. I don't think that at all. I still think it's unfair to Seattle.
Yes.
Because it's not the same. No matter what you say, it's not the same as the Lions saying, if we win, we can make the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of human nature, though. You're playing at 125, and you're hoping that the Seahawks go down, and then you have a chance to get to the playoffs, and that's what they've been talking about in Detroit all season long about making the playoffs. You find out about an hour before kickoff, nope, we have no chance.
Yeah.
Do I expect them to go out there and play hard? Somewhat, but that does punch you in the gut a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh, that would, yeah. So I don't know. The effort would be the same. You got to think that the effort's got to be. I'm sure the line's going to go up, right? The line will go up. It's 4.5. It'll go up to 6 or 6.5.
What an outrage!
This is actually. So this is this I can't. I'm glad you brought this up because this is going to be my question when we talked about it. So we're just going to go straight to it. What is the point spread value of motivation? Because we see it every single year this week, right? And you said it, Jay. And I had it written down to ask you guys. If the Lions were eliminated, where was this line going to get to for Sunday night? What would the market deem the point spread value to motivation? Because I always think these games are fascinating, right? It's always shaded to the team that's got to win for whatever reason it is. You can't really, I know you guys can't really put a number to it, but it does speak to the fact that like every time we see this, and I tend to kind of look as a personal, like as a bettor, the other way, because I think the market kind of overvalues what motivation is worth.
I think the general public definitely
right?
overvalues that. I mean, they always look through these week 17, week 18 lines and say, oh, this is a must-win situation. But we've seen it so many times, those teams going down, even at home. I know the Lions have a little distaste for the Packers. I think there's a little motivation there. I think it's a little different for them to be in Green Bay. If they were in Carolina and they really didn't care. But I think they'll probably have some motivation to just beat the Packers. Would they be able to knock out the Packers?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's motivation.
They would get Seattle in. No, in this scenario, they would get Seattle into the playoffs.
Well, there you go.
Seattle wins.
Yeah.
If Seattle loses, then they would get themselves into the playoffs and win.
Gotcha.
That's why the games should be going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And it's also, it's for the Detroit Lions, and we're talking about this game, so you might as well be like we are talking about it. The Green Bay Packers now at this point, as of today here at the SuperBook, I'm looking at 4.5 with a total of 49. So that's where we're at with this game. There's motivation for Detroit too, I would say. First winning season since 2017, right? Like little things like that. The ability to knock out the Green Bay Packers from the playoffs. Those, eliminate my Super Bowl ticket on the Green Bay Packers. I think everybody would be very upset about that too.
I'd be worried about you.
Yeah.
John.
I mean, the Lions have potential, to go out there, and especially the way they play. They play this loosey-goosey passing game. They throw it all over the field. Yeah, Goff just throws it all around. I mean, he's been on fire. I don't know. He hasn't thrown an interception in like 8 games or something like that, but he's looked terrific. Even on his last road game, surprisingly, he did pretty good. So, but you got to take it a little bit away. So that's why it's 4.5 now. If the Seahawks win, it'd probably go up to 5.5, 6, something like that.
All right, let's go to the primetime game Saturday night. How about this? The AFC South gets center stage. Jacksonville Jaguars playing host to the Tennessee Titans. Interesting scenario. Now, first off, as we know, Joshua Dobbs is going to start for the Tennessee Titans. The winner gets the AFC South. Jacksonville can actually lose this game and still make it into the postseason. So if they lose, they are not eliminated 100%, but it's a pretty simple scenario for them. Jacksonville 6 at the SuperBook with a total of 40. How popular, I laugh. How popular is this game going to be on Saturday night? This is a 5:15 p.m. Pacific time kick.
This should be played on Thursday.
This feels like a Thursday night alternate color scheme game.
Yeah.
When both teams are like dreadful.
Ugh.
I kind of wish it was that. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, we don't have one this week. I wish we did, actually. Yeah. I don't know. This, it's obviously a very unappealing game for most. Very exciting for the Tennessee and Jacksonville fans. We opened 6, got up to 7. We took some sharp money at +7. Yeah, we did that. Henry took last week off. I just don't know if they have it in them with Dobbs back there. That's the big difference, for me looking at this game.
It's probably a bigger drop off than we realized with Tannehill being out. I know Tannehill doesn't get a lot of credit, but Malik Willis at this point he can't possibly play in the NFL, and Dobbs is not an NFL starting quarterback, so it really hurts Tennessee more than we really thought it would. I mean, I don't really like Tannehill much, but compared to the other two options they have, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, 8 men in the box. I mean, that's what you have to do right here. Just stop it, stop Henry, and then force Dobbs to make some of those throws. And I just don't see it happening.
Would you like my conspiracy theory on this?
Yes, let's hear it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Tennessee Titans spent a second getting ready for the Dallas Cowboys. I think they have spent the last 2 weeks game planning for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, if you look at the last 2 drives against Dallas on that Thursday night, they quit. Right? They didn't care. And on the last drive, they weren't calling timeouts. They just wanted to get out of there. They benched guys. I think they were using these last 2 weeks all to get ready for Jacksonville, and Josh Dobbs is going to look.
They should have been
right.
That would be the smart thing to do.
And Vrabel did the smart thing already, right? Step 1, which was resting the important guys against the Dallas Cowboys to get ready for this game. I think we know Vrabel's really smart. I think what these last 2 weeks have been all about for Tennessee is getting ready for Jacksonville.
Tennessee hasn't played well in like 5 weeks.
That is
not
very
just
true.
2 weeks.
That's why you need 2 weeks to get ready.
Okay.
That's why.
Tennessee has looked lousy for a while now, and Jacksonville. I was a little surprised the way Jacksonville handled the game last Sunday.
I mean, you mean playing Trevor Lawrence for 2.5 quarters?
It was a little surprising. They worked out okay for them, but it was questionable. I can see why the sharp money's on the dog there, John.
Yep. All right, let's go to an AFC East matchup. The New York Jets have been eliminated from postseason contention. Miami Dolphins have not. And they are, of course, fighting for a postseason berth. SuperBook Sports right now with the New York Jets floating around a pick. And that total, I've got it at about 38.5. We know what happened for both of these teams, right? Jets went over to Seattle, got smacked around a little bit. Mike White, shockingly enough, didn't really look great. And the Dolphins needed Skylar Thompson to, of course, get in the back door. What are we laughing at? What?
Well, that was sarcasm.
Yeah.
That was sarcasm, no?
Well,
isn't that what that is?
It was a little shocking.
Bring up the stats again. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you want,
look at. I'm not impressed with Mr. White here.
Just gonna say.
Every NFL franchise acts like the only problem they have is we got to bench this quarterback and put in whoever the other guy is.
I was reading think pieces on building around Mike White. I was like, have you watched him play quarterback?
Mike White is not the answer for the New York Jets, but I think there's a lot more pressure on the other side in this game.
Yes.
Miami's kind of mortgaged a lot of their future, and now they're on a 5-game losing streak right now. I mean, they made a big in-season trade to get Chubb from Jay's Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
They've been bringing all these pieces. Obviously, the Tyreek Hill was the big move. They were built to win this season. For them to not even make the playoffs would be pretty bad. Really,
don't worry,
for Miami. I don't think the Jets expected to make the postseason this year. I know they had a good start to the season, but they're a young team. Miami is in a win-now mode. This is pretty bad for them to not make the playoffs at all.
Don't worry. They signed Mike Glennon this week amidst injuries. For those who don't remember, Teddy Bridgewater is injured, and Tua Tagovailoa, of course. So Skylar Thompson, who John now knows who he is.
I know who that is now because I needed Miami on Sunday.
That's right.
Who is he?
He's the I don't remember where he played in college, but he's the quarterback for Miami.
You remember where he played in college?
I can't remember.
Kansas State
right.
quarterback. Skylar
I knew
Thompson.
that. No, he covered the spread for me on Sunday.
Hey, you and me both.
So
I
like that kid.
He's
a gamer. He got the +3 under the number. I'm a fan of his. I'm a fan of Kansas State football.
So the serious question here for you guys is, with all of this noise around the quarterback position, where does this number get to on the spectrum of, right, the door is, everything I've read, door's still open for Tua to play. It could be Teddy Bridgewater. It could be Skylar Thompson. So let's say Skylar Thompson to Tua Tagovailoa. What is the difference in this number?
Pretty significant, I guess. I mean, Thompson, hasn't looked that great at all, but it's a short sample, right? To it, we understand that, and he can play for the most part. He's been pretty good. There's been some hiccups there. I would have to guess that, I don't know. Right off the top of my head, you're talking about if Tua was starting, that the Dolphins would probably be around a 6-point favorite.
Okay,
somewhere right around
either way, you've got to look at it let's say Bridgewater's the quarterback. He's not going to finish the game, right? He's the first gust of wind, and he's going to be gone. He'll be back to the bench for Thompson. So, and Tua is not somebody you can really rely on right now as a guy who's going to give you 60 minutes. So I don't think you can price it as if both these guys are healthy and they're going to finish the game.
Mm-hmm. And to be clear, Skylar Thompson taking first-team reps, it seems like it was reportedly a long shot for Tua to be ready for this weekend.
He's not playing. There's no way they're going to stick him in there.
Always look at the point spread as your indicator of who the quarterback is going to be. If the Jets are favored in the game in Miami and the Jets have nothing to play for and Miami's alive for the postseason, clearly the books are going into this thing expecting it to be Thompson.
That's right.
Yep. Now, if Bridgewater, he didn't break his finger, he dislocated his finger, right?
Yeah.
It was all swelled up and everything. But if Bridgewater gets back there, you're probably looking at a 3-point favorite, right? Over White. Now, we're talking about White.
Until Bridgewater gets hurt, yes.
Yeah.
Franchise
Not talking
quarterback.
about Zach.
Franchise quarterback,
Yeah,
Mike White.
there's a big difference between Zach. And by the way, we didn't say that we're going to build around White, by the way.
I didn't say you. I'm just saying. I think
okay.
there was a lot. I read a think piece on it.
Yeah,
It was
it's
great.
like, well, we just said that he was a big improvement over Wilson.
How many New York Jets think pieces are you going through a week?
Hey, I got to study. I got to get ready. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm ready for you guys.
That was not an attacking question.
2 a week. At minimum. It's part of my to-do.
New York Jets a week. Got
part
it.
of my to-do list.
Okay.
All right, last one. Eagles on the road against the New York Giants. I think this is very clearly, again, one of those scenarios where we're talking about a team that has nothing to play for versus a team that has something to play for in the market freaking out about it. Eagles, 14-point favorite with a total of 43 at the SuperBook. Just sitting on 14, safe to say this is just where it's going to close by the time we get to kickoff. What do you guys think?
Oh, that's a lot. I mean, 14. I mean, we understand. The question is, when do they pull Hurts out, right? When do they pull the starters out?
Can they? They have to play. They need to win the game.
No, if they're up by 21 going into the fourth quarter, right? I mean, Giants have nothing to play for.
Won't be.
They'll probably play their starters, but just a lack of motivation there. They're resting their starters, right? They're in. They don't need the game.
It is not official, by the way, that the Giants are resting their starters. That is still a question.
They're going to rest their starters. I mean, they're going to rest their starters at least the second half.
Right.
I'll say that.
Yeah, they won't play the whole game. I'd be surprised if they sat out the entire game, though.
Just give me the Eagles in the first half.
Okay.
Eagles in the first half or the Giants in the first half? I would assume in a lot of these scenarios, like, for example, a bet that I have already made, I have bet the Tampa Bay Buccaneers first half money line against the Atlanta Falcons. It has already been reported that they want to play in that game, but assuming that they're not going to play the full game, I would think that in these kind of scenarios, the underdog would be the play in the first half. That's just
while the starters are in there before they go out. I get you.
But the starters playing not to get hurt, get out of there. Why are we out here?
Football play.
Maybe. We'll see. It's kind of like a preseason game.
Why would you play Tom Brady in this game, John?
Oh,
do we think Brady's had enough reps in his career so we know he's ready for this wild card game?
I mean,
I know it's a big game for him, the wild card game.
He's
played in a couple biggies.
He's played a couple biggies. This has looked like one of the worst offenses in the NFL for a really long time. I think you need all the reps you can.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah.
That Panthers was a tough loss on Sunday.
That was the best they looked. Mike Evans, all of a sudden, alive. You can get deep balls down the field. So that would be, I think, my argument that they actually try a little bit. The Buccaneers, at least.
The Giants, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, the Giants beat the Redskins. That was the name of the franchise that year. Kirk Cousins was their quarterback, and the Giants beat the Redskins on the last Sunday of the year in Maryland. That's where the Redskins, now the Commanders, play their home games, and knocked them out of the playoffs. The Giants were already in the playoffs. And the Redskins lost that game. They got knocked out. The Giants had clinched their playoff spot, just like they had this year. They were going to be the wild card team. Mm-hmm. They ended up losing to Green Bay in a wild card game the next week. But they went out and they won that game. They knocked Washington out of the postseason.
Crazier things have happened. I'm telling you. All right.
Same coach? Different coach.
Different coach. That was McAdoo, I think, was the Giants coach.
Ben McAdoo.
Yeah, Ben McAdoo.
And his famous 3 wide receiver, 1 running back set that he ran 90. I think the stat was 98.7%. They had the same pre-snap look every time.
The Giants have gone through I like their current coach. I think he's good. The Giants have gone through a bunch of really bad coaches.
Right.
And I know Jay's team, the Broncos, has. How did the Eagles ever manage to go from Andy Reid to Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni without ever finding any every other franchise? I see our social media guy John Hoagland there. He's a Bears fan. They've had some duds. Jeremiah's Jets have had a few duds. How is it that the Eagles just go from one really good coach to the next really good coach?
I don't know.
It's amazing.
They struck gold because clearly Nick Sirianni was the best thing about Frank Reich's Colts.
Sirianni's great. And Doug Peterson, year 1,
yep,
he probably is going to have Jacksonville back in the postseason instantly. And then Andy Reid's had a pretty good run.
Yes, he's been pretty solid.
He's got a good QB with him in KC, but he's a pretty good football coach.
Look at all those quarterbacks you're just mentioning, though.
I mean, that's true, but Trevor Lawrence looked completely lost last year, and Peterson won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles as his quarterback. What Andy Reid has in Kansas City is a unique scenario.
Doug Peterson also had Carson Wentz looking like an MVP for 13 games that year.
You could pretty much have anybody coach Mahomes, and they would look pretty smart.
Even me?
But yes.
Okay.
If you had Mahomes?
Yeah.
you would be fine.
Okay. All right. I like it. All right. Before we move on to the Super Contest, obviously a big week last week. Anything notable in terms of big tickets, big bets, anything we have seen up to this point at all?
I don't recall anything. Really.
We took,
I'm looking at it.
We took a lot of money on Indianapolis because
We did?
the thought process is that Houston will not want to win. I know, John, you're a Colts fan.
Neither team should want to
So,
win.
and I've seen people saying, oh, Houston doesn't care because the Bears aren't going to draft a quarterback anyway because they got Fields. That's ridiculous. That the first pick is the value chip.
Correct.
The Bears and the Texans should both want the number one pick. That way you don't have to worry about what the other team is going to do. And then you hold all the cards in the trade market. Of course, Houston should try to lose on Sunday. Chicago should too, John.
Chicago should. The Colts should. I mean, these, it sounds, I know a lot of people might close their ears at it. It's the smart thing to do.
It is a smart thing to do.
We weren't taking big bets. We took sharp bets you're talking about, right?
Well, depends. It depends on what your definition of large bet is.
A good 5 figures.
Oh, absolutely.
Jay rolls pretty deep, so like these are small
That's
potatoes to him.
It depends on who you're
Essentially is what
talking to,
I'm
I
taking.
guess.
These are small. Yeah, I was gonna say these aren't big bets. This is nothing. This is absolutely nothing. All right, move on. Super Contest update. So we'll start back to kind of where we began, right, and the ramifications of what happened from Monday night. First, from there, from the standpoint of contest rules for you guys, the rules are what when it comes to a cancellation like that?
Well, it states right in the rules that the games for the Super Contest must be played by end of day Tuesday. All right, so they had to decide by end of day yesterday, and once it wasn't played, then those contestants that did select either the Bills or the Bengals did receive 0 points. And I know that stirred up a conversation as well. You know, a lot of people think they should get half, and other contests rule that they do each get a half, but there's another side of the coin to that rule, which I think is just fine. I think they're both fine. But for those that don't believe in 0-0, that they should get a half point each if a game is canceled. This was brought up a couple years ago that you would probably be a little upset. Let's say you and I were tied going into the final week, or whatever, and you beat me by getting a half for a game that wasn't even played.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other side of the coin there. But I guess there's been some support for that more than 0, and I kind of understand that too. So we're going to revisit that rule. But this year, right now, the rule states that if the game's not played by the end of day Tuesday, it counts for a 0 for any contestant selecting that game.
And Jay, I think it's really important everybody understands that we don't like huddle and make these decisions on the fly. I mean, these rules have been set going into the season. Like, we didn't talk on Tuesday morning. What are we going to do with the game bets? Let's refund them or not refund them. We have 8 days for action. That's our rule. You just told the Super Contest rule 0 points if it's not played by Tuesday. That's the rule. There's no conversation. What are we going to do next, guys? The rules are already set. Now, we may decide to revisit the rules in the offseason. We've done that before. But as far as how we handle the games week to week, there is no discussion. The rule says this, that's what we do, period.
Yeah, that rule's been in place for a few years now, probably more like 4 or 5 years. Again, we ran into some situations where you brought up, before we came on the air, the Metrodome collapse.
Yeah, Eagles-Vikings game, Metrodome collapsed.
Right.
The game ended up getting played on a Wednesday.
Right, so things happen. We try to prepare for, all, acts of God and unpredictable weather. Listen, we don't want to be in this situation. We want everybody to understand these rules, and there's not a guessing game. And for the most part, we think that we have, pretty solid rules, and for not just the, Super Contest, but our house rules too. But there are some situations that will come up that we want to make sure that we clarify, because we don't want anybody to come in and bet on things that, might be decided by a gray area or anything like that. It's something that we want to clarify. We want to make sure everybody knows what they're getting into, what they're entering, what they're betting into, and there's no gray area whatsoever.
Right. And from a bettor's perspective, as somebody who in the midst of the COVID year, right, was involved in your guys' NBA win totals contest, was somebody who held some futures in the NBA as well. First thing I did was consult house rules, talk to you guys to see what was going to happen. It wasn't necessarily something I was happy about. That year, your guys' win total contest had to play a minimum 42 games. So I was still in it when they went into the bubble. But regardless, those are the house rules. And I would stress as a bettor, again, to anybody listening, always check house rules. Those are always up.
Kind of like the French Open or the Masters, correct?
Yeah, that's an example of an event that you might want to know the rules for.
Yeah, I think you would want to know the rules
But
for the French Open.
I think people really need to understand the most important part is that the rules are already in there.
Yes.
We're not like looking at the dollars bet on the game, making a decision. We can't do that. Nevada Gaming would shut us down if we did that kind of nonsense. We have rules, we follow them. You don't like them, that's fine. And you think we should revisit the rule, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But we can't go against our own house rules. We get shut down by Nevada Gaming for that.
And we should note, too, there is an impact, by the way, in the SuperContest to an extent. So SuperContest leader, SA247 LLC. You guys got to come up with better names. 3-2, 69%.
You guys, we don't recommend names to the
You guys and gals. So I'm talking to the people who are out
the
there.
people out there.
Yeah. So they went 3-2, 58, 26-1 leader. They have a 3-point lead over 3 others. Benny Stroop, Heineken 21, Marvelous Mark 3. There was an entrant, JHAAS07, who was trying to get into second place. They had the Bills -1. So ultimately that counts as a 0, as we just discussed, because it was not completed by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time Tuesday. So there's some impact at the top of the standings, but still at least the leader right now with a 3-point lead over 3 others and a little bit of drama as we head into the final week of the regular season.
That's a significant lead. I mean, It's not impossible, depending on the way that the picks are submitted, that he could be almost clinched by the time the games start on Sunday. If the people behind him have similar picks to him, they might not be able to catch him.
I had Bengals +1 in the contest. No points there. So, my shot at the final 3-week contest out the window. I was totally in the running. So,
were you in the running?
No, I was not. Speaking of being in the running, John Murray.
Yes.
How's your contest going, buddy?
Did good last week. I can't complain. I love to complain about the bad beats. It's so fun. And I know everyone loves hearing your bad beat stories. It's really popular. But I got lucky. I had Miami +3 last week, went 4-1.
Nice. I like it. Jay stumbling down the stretch over in the RJ, huh?
I was trying to catch up. I admit it. I was trying to pick some sides that I thought were opposite of those that were in front of me. That backfired.
Well, that's good that you brought that up, because one of the things I did get lucky on was I dropped out Houston +4. I really liked that one, and I dropped it because I thought it was going to be the most used one, and I thought I had a little bit of ground to make up, so I got rid of it. Now I also did the same thing with Bucks -3. I like that too. I dropped that one, and they ended up being 2 of the most used games. My strategy would have been perfect if Carolina hadn't blown that game.
Right.
If I could have dropped them both and had them both lose as 2 of the most used games, that would have been awesome for me. I don't know. That Carolina defense just fell apart in the second half there, John. Couldn't keep track of Mike Evans.
Yep.
Nope.
But I am glad I got rid of Houston.
That's a good thought process, though.
Well, you can't. You're just looking at what do I think are going to be the most picked games. I'm not saying I don't think I'm in a position where I have to go against them, but I don't want to use them. I don't want to. I just want to not use them and hope they lose. And it almost worked last week.
Got to tell you, Bucks Packers NFC Championship game. It's going to be wild. All right.
That would not be good for us in terms of futures positions. Let me tell you that much right now. That would be bad.
Does that all stem from the off-season wagers on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Well, there's been a lot. Yes, and there's been people betting Green Bay in the season too.
That's right.
So that would be ugly, man.
That's right.
Plus, the way we book here, we always need the Philadelphia teams in futures for some reason. I can't put
How's that happen?
Can't put my finger on how that happens. But coincidentally, we need Philadelphia.
We got to do
every year in every sport.
They did it that one year.
We won a lot of money in the futures that year.
Yeah,
when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, that was a big windfall.
You mentioned it, Nick Vol.
Yeah, man. That was awesome.
All right, before we get out of here, we do have a championship that will be decided by the time we reconvene. College Football National Championship is set. We're going to get Georgia and TCU. How about that, huh? Who saw those results coming? It was a really, really fun weekend of college. Can we just say that? For the first time in a long time, the college football semifinals actually paid off. They were entertaining contests. Usually they tend to be blowouts.
They were incredibly entertaining. I mean, it was ridiculous. Both games were nuts, I thought. I feel like if I was a Michigan fan, I'd be sick forever. I'll always say that I think Michigan completely gave that game away.
They did.
I mean, TCU played very well offensively, but Michigan totally gave them that game.
Multiple pick sixes doesn't help.
I don't know why they overturned that touchdown.
Yep.
But they did, and then they fumbled inside the 1-yard line. And then on the first drive of the game, they had 4th and goal at the 2. I liked them going for it, but they went to the flea flicker reverse play for some reason. Michigan gave that game away to TCU, and It is what it is, but I think it's going to set up for, I hate to say this, but a boring title game on Monday.
Really? Well, the market, I mean, generally kind of disagrees with you guys, right? Opened up 13.5, down to 12.5 right now?
Well, the public is going to bet TCU.
Yeah.
And they're going to bet
already
TCU.
on TCU.
And they're going to bet TCU money line big. It kind of reminds me of the Super Bowl New England Giants when the New England was almost as big of a favorite, I think, or maybe as big of a favorite the year that the Patriots were 18-0, and everybody just kept betting Giants money line.
Mm-hmm.
And me, a young sportsbook teller, I decided to bet Patriots money line. Because how could they possibly lose? How could they possibly lose? They're 18-0. They're the Giants. The Giants were like a wild card team. Dallas won the division that year. That didn't go well for me, Jay.
That was one of our worst Super Bowls ever.
Oof, man.
As an operator.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because we lost so much money on that money line. Yeah. I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, I think the worst Super Bowl ever for being a teller was that push. Was it the Patriots and Panthers?
Well,
landed right on 7. Everybody
Rams,
got a refund.
Titans Rams was a 7-point spread.
I think Patriots Panthers was another field goal, wasn't it?
Patriots Panthers was a field goal. But Titans Rams, the Rams were a 7-point favorite and they won like 23-16.
Yeah. We refunded it felt like for weeks.
That's no good.
Yeah.
You got to use a 0.5-point spread.
Real quick, before the last notes on this, so you mentioned public's all over TCU. So this initial move we saw from 13.5, 12.5, that was fueled by public bettors, not any respected money that pushed that number down?
I think the market moved down a little bit. I mean, but we're looking at the ticket. The ticket count certainly didn't move the number, but the market moved.
So do you think, I would assume we see a similar, for those who don't remember, on Saturday, we saw, and like Friday night, big push toward Ohio State, right? In that matchup in Georgia, it ended up closing pretty low. Would we see a similar push then late in this matchup? Like by the time we get to Monday, will we see a Georgia push of money that gets this closer to 14?
I think the late money will support Georgia, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough like what we saw in that Ohio State move. That was a big move.
Yeah.
And that was a highly high volume game, I should say. This game will be too, but I'm not sure. It's another game. For sharp bettors, this is just another game.
I don't think this game is going to be as high volume as Georgia-Ohio State. I really don't.
Yeah.
Well,
Georgia-Ohio State was massive handle.
It's New Year's Eve.
The two best teams.
Saturday night.
Yeah. I don't see this game. Now, Georgia-Alabama last year, we did huge volume on that game. But I don't think this game is going to bring out that kind of a crowd.
And, John, to your point, if it is a snoozer, that would impact in-game handle too, right? I mean, if it's a tight game, a fun game, a lot more people are getting involved in-game. If it's not, then a lot of people don't really care.
I don't want to see a snoozer, John.
I don't want to either. I want TCU to win. I like chaos. I think
we do great on Georgia in the futures.
TCU?
So, no, Georgia.
No, I'm asking TCU.
We lose a little bit on TCU.
Okay.
A little bit of a peanut on TCU. So I'm rooting for Georgia just because I want the book to win always. I don't care about any other.
You're a company man.
Yes, I don't care about any other outcome.
As an influencer of SuperBook Sports, I too.
Yes.
Hope that the lights stay on.
How long ago was it when the TCU was playing UNLV and Colorado State? It doesn't seem that long ago.
No.
Now they're in the championship game.
When I moved
Utah,
here, TCU was in the Mountain West.
Yeah.
And BYU, Utah. The Mountain West was awesome back then.
Oh, yeah, it was. Look at it now. Kind of falling apart. All right. With that, Oddsmakers not falling apart. Make sure you like us, follow, rate, review, subscribe up wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to check out what SuperBook has to offer in person, Westgate, Las Vegas, or the Lodge Casino in Blackhawk, Colorado, are the spots. You can check that out. College football, National Football League. And, of course, you can check out SuperBookSports.com. Ohio, hope the week was great, right? Welcome in. First week. It's going to be a lot of fun. And with that, we will talk to you next week here on the Oddsmakers.